What if the very thing you're doing to manifest is the very thing that's stopping it? I know. I didn't believe it either. I was doing everything right. Affirmations on the hour. Visualizing until my temples throbbed. Writing out gratitude lists so long they could wallpaper a room. And still, nothing. Until one Thursday afternoon I cracked. Not in a dramatic, tear-streaked kind of way. I just stopped. I closed the notebook. I let go of the effort. I whispered to myself, if it's going to happen, let it happen without me. And then something strange occurred. Peace, not hope, not expectation, just quiet knowing. That was the moment Neville Goddard's teaching stopped being theory and became law. Because manifestation doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to assumption. It moves when you do not chase and arrives when you no longer ask. The paradox is this: when I stopped needing it to come, it came. Let me show you why the act of surrender isn't passive. It's powerful. And why the day I gave up trying was the day the universe finally said yes. Every waking moment, I was trying to make it happen. I couldn't sit in silence without launching into affirmations. I visualized while brushing my teeth. I rehearsed imaginary success conversations while making toast. I was scripting, meditating, looping, anything to make it move faster. But nothing moved. Not really. And then it hit me. I wasn't manifesting the desire. I was manifesting the need for the desire. I was creating one thing, and one thing only: resistance. Every time I tried to force the outcome, I was declaring it absent. Trying was an act of fear. It was a quiet confession to the universe. I don't have this yet, and I don't believe I will unless I fight for it. But here's what Neville taught, and what most people miss. You don't create by effort, you create by assumption. And assumption doesn't strain, it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't beg, it accepts. To assume your wish fulfilled is to rest in the end, not to chase it. It's a quiet internal agreement. This is already mine, so I stopped trying. I stopped affirming out of fear. I stopped visualizing out of lack. And the result? Everything began to shift. Not because I was doing more, but because I was finally being more. Because true manifestation doesn't come through effort. It comes through identity. That Thursday, I hit my limit. I remember sitting in my car after another failed client meeting, staring at the dashboard like it might give me answers. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just hollow, empty in a way that no affirmation could fill. And so, I stopped. No more scripting, no more visualizing, no more imaginary conversations filled with applause and praise. I didn't delete my dreams, I just let them float. I whispered to myself, if it's going to happen, let it happen without me. And in that moment, something broke. But it wasn't me, it was the grip. The white-knuckle desperation I'd wrapped around my desire finally loosened. The craving fell away, and in its place, peace, not silence, not nothingness, but a calm knowing, as if the universe had been waiting for me to stop shouting long enough to hear its whisper. This, Neville would say, is the moment of true acceptance. When you no longer chase the desire, you become it. You no longer look forward, you look from. Because the act of forcing is built on doubt. But the act of stillness, that's born of faith. I didn't need it to happen anymore. And that's exactly when it did. You'll know you've reached the turning point not when you want it more, but when you're willing to live as though it's already done. No proof, no promise, just peace. And that, my dear friend, is the moment the law begins to move. That evening, something unusual happened. I wasn't trying to manifest. I wasn't visualizing. I wasn't looping a congratulatory scene. I was just washing dishes, breathing, existing. And then, out of nowhere, I heard myself say it, not in my head, but in my being. Of course it worked out. Not as an affirmation, not as hope, but as a memory. As if I were recalling something that had already happened. As if success wasn't ahead of me, but behind me, etched into my past. It was quiet, it was subtle, but it was real. This, I realized, was the state Neville spoke of. Live from the state of the wish fulfilled. Not toward it, not about it, but from it. There was no effort left, no straining to feel it real, no mental tug of war between doubt and belief. The shift wasn't dramatic, it was invisible. But my inner world had rearranged itself completely. I wasn't hoping anymore. I was remembering. It no longer felt like something I needed to reach for. It felt like something I already knew. And that knowing, it's magnetic. When you stop trying to convince yourself and start remembering who you already are, the world doesn't need to be persuaded. It simply responds. Because the truth is this: the moment you remember, the world does too. For the next 3 days, I didn't try. I didn't push. I didn't bargain with the universe. I just lived. I woke up each morning and moved through the day as if it was already done. There was no mental drama. No inner courtroom where my desire had to defend itself. I didn't keep checking if it was working. I didn't ask the how. I simply wore the feeling like a second skin. Quiet, certain, unshakable. And then, it began. That weekend, an unexpected email landed in my inbox, a long-forgotten opportunity returning out of nowhere. Then a phone call, someone who just happened to think of me for a project. Then a chain of events too perfectly timed to be anything but divine choreography. I hadn't reached out, I hadn't plotted a strategy, I wasn't chasing it, it was chasing me. This is what Neville meant when he spoke of 72 hours of assumption. Just like resurrection follows the tomb, so does manifestation follow surrender. The moment I gave up the need to control, the pattern unfolded with surgical precision. My inner world had already changed. The outer world was simply catching up. This wasn't magic. This was law. Immutable, exact, and activated the second I stopped interfering. So ask yourself, are you in the tomb of doubt or the stillness of faith? Because when you hold the assumption, even for 3 days, reality has no choice but to obey. Trying is the most seductive trap in manifestation. It feels like progress. It feels like dedication. But underneath every "I'm trying" is a silent admission. I don't have it yet. Trying comes from lack, from the ache of separation. It's the subtle echo of not enough. And here's the truth. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not wish for the feeling of assumption. Neville didn't say try to feel it. He said to assume it. Because assumption doesn't negotiate. It doesn't ask, am I doing it right? It simply is. The subconscious, the true engine of reality, doesn't respond to force. It doesn't care how many hours you affirm or visualize. It only accepts what feels real. And reality, to the subconscious, is what you accept without resistance. So when you're constantly checking, doubting, tweaking, you're telling the subconscious, it's not done. But when you stop searching for signs, something flips. You become the sign. When you stop asking, is it working? And start walking like it's already yours, the world moves. People shift. Circumstances bend. Not because you forced them, but because you no longer needed them to prove anything. You stopped chasing evidence and became it. So ask yourself now, are you trying to manifest? Or are you finally being the version of you who no longer needs to? Because that version isn't asking. They're already living it. Within 7 days, everything shifted. I signed a new client, effortlessly. A relationship I had quietly grieved for months repaired itself in a single, honest conversation. And for the first time in what felt like years, I slept without anxiety whispering through the night. But here's the thing. The world didn't change first. I did. Not through effort, not through discipline, but through identity. I stopped trying to become and started living as if I already was. And that inner voice, the one that used to plead, rehearse, and beg, became calm, certain, steady. The outer world didn't reward my efforts. It reflected my new assumption. Because manifestation isn't about getting the world to agree with your wish. It's about becoming the version of you for whom the wish is already reality. There was no more mental negotiation. No more emotional gymnastics, just stillness, just alignment. Just a quiet confidence that said, "Of course this is happening. How could it not? Neville was right all along." You don't need to manipulate the mirror. You just change the face looking into it. Once I stopped forcing, once I stopped obsessing, once I simply assumed, the world reorganized itself to match me. Because that's the secret no one tells you. It doesn't take time to manifest. It takes identity. And when identity shifts, the timeline does too. Remember the story of Abraham? A man promised a child in his 90s, his body old, his wife barren. Every fact, every appearance, every logical reason said, this is impossible. But Abraham didn't act in desperation. He didn't scramble to force the promise. He didn't question the timeline. He didn't beg the heavens to hurry. He rested in the promise. That, Neville would say, is the real meaning of faith. Not begging, not hoping, just knowing. Faith is not a frantic prayer. It's not repeating affirmations like a lifeline. It's not standing on the edge of fear and trying to shout your way back into belief. Faith is stillness. It's the ability to stand in a world that contradicts your desire and still live as though it's done. It's hearing the doctor's diagnosis and responding with peace. It's seeing the empty bank account and feeling abundance anyway. It's walking through the wilderness with the knowing that the promised land is already yours. Because faith isn't about appearances, it's about identity. When you understand this, Scripture stops sounding like myth and starts reading like law. Abraham didn't manifest by force. He manifested by conviction. He believed, and so it was. And the same power rests in you now. Not when you ask for it, not when you prove you deserve it, but the moment you assume it and rest in the knowing that what was promised is already fulfilled. Every morning I wake up and I don't ask, is it working? That question belongs to the old version of me, the one still waiting, still doubting, still negotiating with the unseen. Now I do something radically simple. I return to the identity I've already become, the version of me who no longer needs to try. Not because the desire is gone, but because it's already mine. In consciousness, in certainty, in the quiet, unshakable knowing that the bridge of incidents is already unfolding. Neville said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not on special days, not when you feel inspired, but every single morning. That's your reset. That's your ritual. Before the phone, before the distractions, before the doubt creeps in, step into the identity of already having. Stop thinking like the version of you that's waiting, because when you stop trying, you stop resisting. The moment you say, it's done, the game changes. Not because the world suddenly cooperates, but because you've stopped arguing with it. Your job is not to control the timing. Your job is to embody the outcome. So tomorrow, when you wake up, don't look for signs. Don't analyze the delay. Just remember who you are and walk from that place. Because the one who already has it doesn't wonder when it's coming. They're too busy living it. Most people never see their desires manifest. Not because they didn't want it enough. Not because they didn't visualize or affirm or journal hard enough. But because they never dared to live without the wanting. They stay in the waiting room of desire, checking the clock, looking for signs, hoping for change. And all the while, they're affirming the lack. They are not creating from fulfillment. They're creating from absence. Here's the truth. The moment you stop needing it to show up is the moment it has to. Because needing is resistance. Wanting is separation. Trying is the greatest confession of doubt. But being is divine. So I ask you now, and don't answer quickly. Are you still trying to manifest? Or are you finally being the version of you who already has it? Because only one of those paths leads to the door. The other keeps you knocking on it forever. This is the shift. This is the law. And the second you accept it, not hope, not wish, but accept it, reality bends, quietly, precisely, and all you ever wanted starts walking toward you.